Mountaineer fans, and welcome into SVC Sports Weekly, hosted by Nosek and Gage. Gage, it's championship week. Exciting time for the fall student athletes, especially all of our teams here at Southern Vermont College. A couple teams finishing up their seasons last week, this past week, and then we have the big championship, women's volleyball, that we are hosting this weekend. So let's get right down to it. Let's start with the cross countries, who, as we talked about last week, we're going to the NECC championship races down in Westfield, Massachusetts last week. A race hosted by Bay Path College. The men's side did very well. Matched their number 2 finish or second place finish from last year, and brought that runner-up award back to Southern Vermont. Unfortunately, couldn't top the Leslie University. Tough day for junior Herson Cantha, who has led the Mountaineers all season. Suffered a hamstring injury back on Thursday, I believe it was, which knocked his time way down, but allowed other guys to step up. One being Victor Velasquez, who matched his all-NECC second team placement of a year ago with another NECC second team placement this year by finishing 9th. So overall, great race for the men.
Absolutely. The one thing that I took from this is what a good team these guys are. So much of this year has been talked about Herson and how many great finishes he's had, and he absolutely has. He had a great season, but it's a sport where if you pull up with an injury like he did, how's it going to affect your team? And this team did a great job. Like you said, Victor finished 9th overall in the race. Team finished 2nd. So just a overall great performance by the men's cross country team and program, and just shows that this program is headed in the right direction and only going to continue to get better. And I think in the years to come, Leslie University should be watching out because Southern Vermont's right on their heels.
And one thing that head coach Kathleen Newton mentioned to me was that Leslie is a pretty old team in terms of years. A good amount of seniors on that group. So they're going to have a lot to make up for next year, whereas the Mountaineers don't have any seniors. They're bringing this whole group back. Again, Victor Velasquez, Hezbollah Ogeka, junior that ran a great race, finished 2nd for the Mountaineers, just missed making an all-conference placement. He finished 11th. Freshman Corey Barcombe was just outside with a 12th place finish. So again, as you mentioned, the whole team did very well and progressed throughout the season to the point where they got the 2nd place, and maybe they could have done even better if Herson hadn't sustained that injury. But again, bringing them all back for next year, it's a great first step, especially for, again, Coach Newton in her first year with the program.
Yeah, this is something that this program's not done. Like I said, I think you're going to see this team right there again next year, hopefully in a first place finish next year. And also, their season's not over. A couple of these guys are going to run in the NCAAs, and that's an experience of a lifetime as well. One of the neat things about cross country is, individuals can compete, and I think, hopefully Herson is available and recovered from his injury. I think he can put up a good time, like he's competed with many of these other, high-level schools all throughout the year, and I think he's probably going to be excited to get back on the course and run again as well.
Oh, I'm sure he will, and they have a little bit of time for him to kind of rehab that injury and get back to his full form. The NCAA regional meet at the University of Southern Maine in Cumberland, Maine, doesn't take place until November 16th. So he has a couple weeks here to rest up, heal that hamstring, and then go out and hit it. Right now, I think Coach Newton is preparing to take 6 of the men up to Maine, so they'll be able to compete as a full team. How well are they going to stack up against the Williams and the Southern Maines?
Yeah.
That's yet to be seen. But you would like to think that it's a great experience for them. And if they can do well, now they're hungry and they come back next year and they want that NECC championship.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Like you said, the experience is something that they're going to, in the off-season, be able to say, hey, this is where we want to be. Let's get there and let's work for it. So, and especially these guys who work hard every day. You drive down the road and you're 3 miles away from campus and you see, someone running around that's on our men's cross country team just trying to get better. And it really speaks volumes of how, this program has come along. And like I said, I think they're going to be there for the next couple of years, right at the top of things as well.
And the men, and we'll flip over to the women now, very similar. I mean, they're almost mirror images of one another. Both teams had the day off by the coach, quote-unquote day off, earlier in the week, and I went outside and I still saw the runners, getting a decent jog in, and I think they just love running, they love competing, and they love getting better. And they know that if they use the techniques and the training methods that Coach Newton has taught them, then they can get better, both as individuals and as a team.
You're exactly right. And I think the same thing with this women's team is Skylar McGuire is a freshman. Haley Omasta is a sophomore. So again, this is a team that's going to continue to grow, continue to get better. They're learning from Coach Newton every day. She's making them better runners. They want to run, they want to compete. So it's just really a good time for cross country on the Southern Vermont College campus.
Yeah, and you mentioned Skylar McGuire and Haley Omasta. They both made the All-NECC teams with their finishes at the championship last weekend. Skylar finished 5th to put her on the All-NECC first team, and Haley finished 9th, placing her on the All-Conference second team for the second year in a row. So I know sophomore, All-NECC placements her first 2 years. I know she's hungry to break her personal best to get onto that All-NECC first team. And again, it's those little things that really push them, not only through the season, but through the off-season. And you know that we're going to be seeing them hitting the roads, hitting the trails throughout the winter, through the spring, hungry to come back and do even better. We mentioned the men aren't losing anybody. The women are only losing Sarah Birds, who's their lone senior. She actually had a great race with a personal best at the championship. Sophomore rookie Ashley Perino also had a PR. So they finished 6th as a team. Not ideal, didn't match the 4th place finish they had a year ago. But they still did well for what you can call a relatively young team, a relatively new group. It's definitely different from what we saw the women's team be a year ago, and only a few of those members came back. So all in all, again, a good first step.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Is there's just a ton of talent there, and it's only going to get better. The championship is a big event. I mean, to look at a team that has a lot of freshmen and sophomores, and to step out there with, other programs across the conference that have juniors and seniors running, it's tough. It's a long season, but I think now that they have the experience of a year and they're continuing to grow as a team together, I think that's the one thing about both of these teams. They're as close as a team can get around campus is our cross country programs. So that's only going to make them better as well. And just as the years go on, I think the cross country program is in a really good place in Coach Newton's hands, and you're going to see a lot of positives in the years to come.
Definitely. As you mentioned, they're not done. We said 6 of the men are going up to University of Southern Maine on November 16th. Haley and Skylar will also be going for the women's side. So just 2 for the women, 6 for the men. Another chance to get at it. For the women, that's a 6K race, so that's a little bit further for Skylar and Haley. But we're confident that they're going to do well, and they're determined. Again, 2 more weeks of training to get ready for that, and we will obviously recap that as we get closer to it and then surpass it in a couple weeks. Before we get off cross country real quickly, you mentioned the togetherness of these teams, their camaraderie and just their ability to get along and have fun. The men's team also won the NECC Sportsmanship Award from this past weekend, which is based on coaches voting. So congratulations to the men for getting that. And well deserving, both of them and Coach Newton. So
yeah, it's a great award to win. I mean, we've talked about it before on the show, but it's definitely an award that just talks really about your character of a program, and I think it's something that exemplifies them tremendously. So congrats to them, like you said, on the Sportsmanship Award.
Go over to women's soccer here. Unfortunately, the Mountaineers ended their season this week with a Tuesday loss at Regis College in the NECC first round playoff. The Mountaineers finished the regular season last week 6-8-1 overall, 5-4 in the conference. 2 really tough losses to finish up that season. One being at Bay Path in overtime, double overtime even, and then against Regis here at home on Senior Day. Had they won one of those games, they would have had a first round home match. Unfortunately, as we mentioned, they lost. They had to go on the road to Regis, play the Pride for the second time in 4 days, and fell 2-1 at Regis Stadium, again on Tuesday evening. And so you look back on the season and you say, all things considered, they did pretty well. Stayed healthy for the most part, and were able to get the goals they needed for the most part. Obviously, just fell short when it came, push came to shove.
Yeah, I think, the tough thing with any sport is you can be playing well all year, and this team got back to 500, I believe, and they came up against, big-time opponents at the end of the season. Bay Path, the game was tied 0-0. A couple starters were missing. Not any excuses by any means. Bay Path earned the win. Minute and a half left in the game. Ball gets played over the top. Bay Path player runs onto it. She scores. We lose 1-0. Same thing against Regis on Saturday, Senior Day. Great ceremony for some really good seniors that have done a lot for this program. And, they get one in the first, get one in the second on a couple of plays. And just tough way to end the season. But I think going into the playoff game this week, I thought that they were well prepared. And sort of same thing, just the first half, Regis got a goal early. To start the second half, Regis got another goal. And I think you just saw the fight the last 35 minutes from this Southern Vermont women's soccer team. And it showed a lot of character about the seniors. I think this is a group of seniors that came here when the program, was just sort of starting to, become something. And last year they set a program mark in wins, and this year again, had a good season, finished 5th, made a playoff run. But I think that's, the big thing here is you got to congratulate the seniors and what they did for this program and sort of put them on the map in the NECC.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned the seniors of, defenseman Erica Garay, midfielder Jocelyn Ortega, Lindsay Pilling, as well as Caitlin Forant. And each of those had a pivotal role on that team, both on and off the field. So definitely going to be, devastating to lose that core group. And there's going to be some shoes to, fill, which we're confident that Coach Zauzik will be able to do through recruiting. But you look at this playoff game, and as you mentioned, that last 35 minutes, they really started pushing forward a little more. Anybody that was watching the video or happened to make it down to Weston to see the match live, kind of saw Jocelyn Ortega push forward a little more and kind of play a striker, almost make that formation into a 2-striker system with her advances. And that really helped open things up and create chances for the Mountaineers. So, again, what do they need to do to get over that hump, to get that first round playoff win? They've gotten to the playoffs the last 3 years, and Coach Z's first 3 years with the program. What do they need to do to get over that hump? And I know that's something that he's going to dissect and look into throughout the offseason, as he starts recruiting and figures out which pieces he needs to replace and what skill sets he needs to bring in.
Yeah, it's a huge recruiting class here for the women's soccer program. Like you said, there's a lot to replace. I mean, you talk about Caitlin Forant, the all-time leader in goals scored here at Southern Vermont College. Jocelyn Ortega was a tremendous linchpin in the middle of the field. Erica in the back. And all kinds of talent that needs to be replaced. So it's a huge recruiting class here for Coach Zauzik. But there's also a good amount of returners coming back. You can go through the list of whatever you want, but these girls now have experience. But you're right. There does need to be a recruiting class that gets them over the hump and get that first round playoff game at home, and hopefully a first round playoff win. And I know Coach Zauzik's goal is to win a championship. He's been here 3 years now. Hopefully in year 4 they can take a step closer as that comes.
Absolutely. And once again, congratulations to the women for making that push, getting into the playoffs. Unfortunately, losing in the first round. But I'm sure we're not done talking about them. All conference teams are announced next week, and I wouldn't be surprised if some Mountaineers are on those lists, including the seniors that we mentioned. So we look forward to those. Go over to the men's side real quick, who also finished their season last week. Unfortunately, didn't make the playoffs. They had a chance, but as we mentioned on SVC Sports Weekly a week ago, they needed some help, and unfortunately they didn't get that help. On Wednesday when they were at Middlebury and they lost 5-0, Daniel Webster was in the process of winning, effectively putting the Mountaineers out of the playoffs, but that didn't, They didn't pack it in and say, all right, shut it down for the rest of the year. They went to Newberry, who is, at the top of the conference, and they gave them a game. They lost 4-3 in double overtime.
Again, something that I think you can speak of all of our athletes around campus. Just the character, good people that really care about their sport, and it's very easy to go into that game, like you said, and just pack it in and get beat 4-0 or 3-0, and they didn't do that. They competed, went into double overtime, and Newberry had some leads in that game, and Southern Vermont was able to come back and tie the game each time. And again, I think that speaks highly of the seniors graduating and leaving and making sure that their last game was competitive, and it also speaks volumes of the younger players on that team, caring about Southern Vermont College and our athletic program.
Yeah, you mentioned the seniors, and for Derek Snow, scored a goal and an assist in his last game. So once again, as we mentioned last week, congratulations to Derek for all of his accomplishments on and off the field. Great kid that I'm sure Coach Hutchins is going to miss next year. And that's, kind of one of those silent leadership roles that needs to be filled. And I'm sure there are guys that are ready to step up and take on that role. But again, once again, congratulations to Derek. And unfortunately, the Mountaineers not making it into the playoffs. But in Coach Hutchins' first year, he'll, be able to bring in some of his recruits and the skill sets that he's looking for in order to run the system that he wants.
Exactly.
I'm sure there are good things to come over the horizon when you're looking at that team.
No doubt about it.
So we got to finish off with the big one. Here it is, Dave. Once again, the NECC Women's Volleyball Championship is coming to Bennington. Semifinal set for Friday night. The Mountaineers claimed the 1 seed that helped do that with the win over Leslie University back on Saturday. Unfortunately, they lost to Newberry 3-2 last Wednesday on senior night. Quick note that the Mountaineers were 0-3 on senior day, so maybe we just scratch these for the rest of the year. And that ended a 26-match conference win streak for Southern Vermont, unfortunately. But they still got in with the number 1 seed, and they will be playing Daniel Webster, who is the 4th seed, on Friday night in a rematch of not only last year's semifinal, but also the 2011 semifinal. So kind of, a rivalry going here, and I know Daniel Webster is going to come in with that chip on their shoulder, saying we are not getting knocked off by the Mountaineers in the semis again. And it should make for an entertaining match.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, it's funny. Last week we talked about we need to beat Newberry, and this game could determine first place in the conference and whatnot. And Newberry wins, and now they're the number 1. And then Friday night, I believe last week they lost. So now it was all right. As long as we win Saturday, we host. So first off, congrats to the women's volleyball team on winning the regular season championship. And second of all, like you said, it's going to be a tough weekend. 4 really good teams: Regis, Newberry, Daniel Webster, and of course the Mountaineers of Southern Vermont. And it's going to be a fun weekend. There's going to be a lot of good volleyball, a lot of close action. And as we talked about last week, every point matters. Every serve matters, every pass matters. So this team has to come in. They do have the experience, of playing in big games. So take care of business Friday, and hopefully we're hanging the banner again on Saturday.
Yeah, you mentioned that kind of cluster at the top, and we were touching on this last week, and that last weekend was pivotal. Leslie lost, effectively pushing them down to the 5 seed. Had they won, they would have been the 2, maybe even the 1, depending on how the rest of the conference shook out. And somehow Regis, not somehow, they won the last 4 matches of the season.
Yep.
They were looking at the 4th of the 5 seed a couple weeks ago. They go on a run, they get hot, they won those last 4, they ended up with the 2 seed. So, again, it's going to be a very competitive semifinal. They're matching up against Newberry, who they beat earlier in the season. Newberry didn't have an easy road to get here. They matched up against number 6 Mitchell College back on Tuesday night, and that got pushed. They actually had to push that to 5 sets.
Yep.
Mitchell took the first, and then they took the third, and Newberry had to fight back to take the 4th, push it to the 5th, and then
they were
actually
5th.
losing.
Yeah.
I believe it was 11-9. I was watching the live stats, so I'm not sure, but it seemed like they took a timeout because the live stats kind of stalled for a little bit there, and then they went on a 6-point run and won 15-11. So I think we've mentioned before that they kind of seem like a streaky team, and we saw that when they were here. When they're down, they get down, but when they're up, they fly, and they're led by a couple of good freshmen, so maybe that factors into it. I'm not sure. But again, them against Regis, that's also a rematch of last year's semifinal, which Newberry was the 2 seed. Regis came in as a 3 and was able to knock the Nighthawks off to get to the championship. And that'll be an entertaining game too, which is 40 minutes to follow game 1.
And also, those 2 coaches were college teammates, so it's always fun to see them on the sidelines, competing against each other. But first things first, hopefully Southern Vermont takes care of Daniel Webster, and we're in the championship game at 2 p.m. on Saturday.
I did not know that, Dave, and you learn something new every week on SVC Sports Weekly. We'd like to thank you all for joining us again, and we hope to catch you next week, and we hope to, again, be talking about that championship cup, staying in the Mountaineer room, adding that 3rd trophy. And, I mean, in college athletics, can you talk about dynasty?
3-peat.
3-peat. Yeah. Dare I say that word? Am I getting a little bit ahead of myself? Possibly. But, again, the Mountaineers beat Danny Webster 3-1 back on November 20th, I believe it was. And they're confident in themselves, especially on their home court. We've talked about the MAC, and it should be a fun atmosphere. So again, Friday evening, 6 p.m., Southern Vermont plays Daniel Webster College in the first semifinal, and then Regis takes on Newberry 40 minutes following, and then the championship match is set for Saturday at 2 o'clock. We hope to see you all there. If you can't make it, live stats and live video will be going all weekend. Check out the schedule page at svcathletics.com for those links. And again, we'll catch you next week here on SVC Sports Weekly. Go Mountaineers!